This is Detroit, at one point in time the richest city in the United States and even the entire world. It was supposed to be the future beacon of the American dream, on par with the likes of New York City. Today, it sits abandoned, a shell of its former self, with only the decaying buildings of the past reminding us of what it once was. So how did this happen, and why is it a warning to the likes of Silicon Valley, Atlanta, and Dallas? Imagine Miami, Philadelphia, or Las Vegas suddenly disappearing only to end up as a ghost town. It's almost impossible to conceive. How could cities with such a large population and booming industries suddenly vanish in a matter of a few decades? You may even think that they're just too big and important to fail, and yet, that's exactly what happened in Detroit, Michigan just half a century ago. Today, Detroit is only known for a few things: gang violence, poverty, and Eminem, which is insane to think about considering where Detroit was 80 years ago. You see, during the 1950s, Detroit was actually one of the wealthiest cities in America. Some even considered it to be the richest in the world. That was during what many call the golden age of capitalism. During this time, Detroit became a manufacturing mega hub, thanks in part to its geography and history of shipbuilding and steelwork factories. It became the perfect spot for the next great invention that would change the world: automobiles. With the rise of the popularity of automobiles and new methods of manufacturing, Detroit quickly became the go-to spot for the thriving new industry. Everyone came pouring in, including the biggest manufacturers of the time: Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford. They also brought with them an immense amount of jobs. Around 1.6 million new jobs were created because of the auto industry. And more jobs meant more people. Between 1910 and 1950, Detroit's population grew from just about 500,000 people to 1.8 million, all of them dependent on the future of the auto industry. It was during the 50s that Detroit saw the peak of its time. The average household income was the highest in the country. That's when everything started going downhill. The first domino to fall was the auto companies moving their manufacturing elsewhere. There were multiple reasons for this, not the least of which being they just didn't want to pay as much for the workers. At the time, Detroit had really good unions, such as the United Automobile Workers that had defended the high pay for factory workers for a long time. Land inside the city was also expensive and meant that expansion and maintenance would be more expensive as well. As a result, moving the factories to the suburbs allowed them to bypass the expensive workers and land. As such, taking away the jobs that the city depended upon, and as a result, moving the tax base Detroit needed to further invest in its infrastructure. Factories relocated not just to the suburbs, but to other countries as well, outsourcing wherever was cheap in land and workers. And you may see that trend today. In fact, you can argue that the entire rise of China was a result of the West outsourcing its manufacturing to China, thanks to its cheap workers and land at the time. Detroit's fall sped up with the rise of global competition, as well as increasing unrest with the population that were left in the city. Increased racial tensions mixed with the bulk of the tax base vanishing caused a steep and dramatic fall in the city's population. In the 50 years after its peak, Detroit's population fell under 1 million, a population even lower than it had in 1925. Detroit didn't collapse because people stopped buying cars. It collapsed because the moment it became cheaper to leave than to stay, the corporations that built the city simply walked away. And when they left, everything else followed. This is what happens when a city puts all its faith in one industry, when its entire identity, economy, and future depend on companies whose loyalty is to the bottom line. Detroit wasn't abandoned by accident, it was abandoned by design. And really, that should concern every booming city today. Silicon Valley, with its tech giants, Atlanta, Dallas, none of them are untouchable. All it takes is a shift in cost, a new competitor, a single disruptive technology, and the same story can play out again. Detroit is not a relic of the past, it's a preview, a warning of how fast a city can rise and how quickly it can fall, and how little it takes for the quote-unquote future of America to become tomorrow's ghost town.